Talk on Lumbasi TV. Today we are speaking to Dr. Isaac Kinity, one of the most perennial, if not so, among those who have fought for human rights here in Kenya, way before some of us had been given birth to. So today we are speaking to Isaac Kinity all the way from Connecticut. Daktari Jambo, and good evening. I don't know what time it is in Connecticut, but most welcome to Lumbasi TV. How are you doing?
I'm all right, and everything is good, and Connecticut is good, and the time here is around 12:40 p.m.
So that is afternoon. So Daktari, once again, thank you for making time for us. We've had so many things that have been happening in the political space of Kenya. So we just want to get to understand where Kenya is heading as we speak. We've had the former deputy president in the US currently is doing some visits in the US, trying to meet different communities there. And of course, here in Kenya, we also have had several issues that pertains to the leadership. So, Daktari, from where you sit, where do you think Kenya is heading to in terms of the political space? And perhaps as you answer that question, you can also extend your greetings to those who are watching us live.
Thank you very much for inviting me here at the TV so that I can be able to talk to Kenyans. Before anything else, I would like us to remember the Gen Z, the young men and women who sacrificed to fight for the country last year, and most of who were killed, and others disappear. That we give ourselves 1 minute of silence to remember them. Thank you very much for that 1 minute, remembering our young men and women who sacrificed for our country. The position of Kenya at the moment is very uncertain, and no one can tell for sure where Kenya is heading to. One, because most of the close friends and advisors of President William Ruto have publicly said that they will not allow to see William Ruto losing seat in 2027 elections. That is a very, very, very dangerous statement, because one has to ask, if William Ruto be defeated in election, what are they prepared to do to make sure that he remains in power? Well, I can remind Kenyans just a short while ago when one of those very close friends of the president warned the army general, Francis Ogola, and he told him, "I'm warning you." And shortly after, Francis Ogola was dead. So these are not good signs of Kenya. These are bad signs. We have had people disappearing from their houses. We have a young man, Ojwang, who was taken from his home while he was taking lunch. And the other time he was seen, he was a dead man. This is a very worrying situation, and Kenyans have got to think so much about that and derive ways and means how this can be stopped.
So, Daktari, as you rightly put it, we have had extrajudicial killings. You mentioned, young people like the late Albert Ojwang, who was killed in a police cell. We are also talking about what I'd call, mounted pressure, rather from the faction that is supporting Ruto, promising that is not going to be, business as usual, to just have Ruto being first term, one-term president, sorry. So from where you sit, what do you think we are going to do? Because there has been a rallying call from across the board. We are just talking about, the Gen Zs, but there are also the millennials who are believing from where they are that this country needs fresh blood. This country needs to really rethink on how we elect our leaders. So from where you sit, what is the solution? Because we've had a new IEBC, and they are giving promise of a free, fair election. Of course, we've had IEBC before, and this has been the promise over and over again. So from where you sit as somebody who has been in this space during the Moi era all the way to Kibaki, you've witnessed the Kenyatta, the Uhuru Kenyatta era, and now here is Ruto with us, and things are still seemingly not working.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that since the independence of Kenya, leaders have continued to be cycled from this system to the other. And the Kenyans who don't know where this started, it started with the founding father of the nation of Kenya. That is Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta inherited all these home guards who were serving the colonialists. And all these chiefs were serving the colonialists. And one thing that I'd like to ask anyone who can be able to explain to Kenyans is why a government that tortured Kenyans, the colonialists, a government that harassed Kenyans, people would have been inherited by Jomo Kenyatta in the name of experience. What kind of experience did those people have from the colonialists? It must have been the experience of torture, of intimidation, and of harassment, and of grabbing land, because the colonialists grabbed a lot of land in Kenya. So if it were an experience that was necessary in Kenya, it should not have been gotten from these people who are responsible for the problems that were in Kenya. That's number one. Now, after that, the system or a culture of recycling leaders started from there. Every year, every election, the people who have been in the system are recycled. And every year, every election, people cry of looting of public funds. They cry of extrajudicial killings from day one. Now I may ask, what kind of political experience do Kenyans always expect from these people in leadership, who each and every year they inherit the same people who are in the system? As for me, the political experience that these people have is the experience of looting public funds, of extrajudicial killings, and of grabbing land. So we have to address these things as Kenyans. How can we end corruption, which is the looting of public funds? How can we end land grabbing? And how can we end tribalism, which comes out of all this? That's where the problem lies. And to add to it, I would like to explain to Kenyans who are listening that these problems are brought about by only two categories of people. And these categories of people only make 5% of the population. 5%. These are those looters of public funds who are the leaders, and they are bootlickers, I call them bootbrokers, who are sent in the villages and the towns to lie to the electorate that we want people with political experience. And because more people don't ask themselves what source of the political experience they talk about, they go on accepting the same people who have put them in the mess they cry about. So we have one thing to deny or dismiss: the cycling of leaders in the name of political experience, because their source of political experience is very questionable and very bad.
Yes, Dr. That is quite insightful. You talk about, looting of public funds, and we've had, elected leaders going around in what they term as the empowerment. I don't know what is your take on that, because up until last week, somebody was, a paper quoted to, the deputy president had spent close to 200 million in less than 1 month just giving out money in what they call, economic empowerment, and they are walking around in choppers. They are dishing out hundreds and tens of millions. I don't know, from where you sit, would you call that economic empowerment? And do you as a leader also question the source of this money that they are giving out? Where are they getting this money from, Dr.
Well, you're bringing a very good subject, which takes me back to a few days ago when I saw in the TV with my own eyes a CS by the name Kipchumba Murkomen boasting that he has got a watch of 900,000 Kenya shillings. He has got shoes which cost 80,000 Kenya shillings, and he has got a belt worth 80,000 Kenya shillings, and he has got a necktie worth 20,000 Kenya shillings. And I question myself, even in USA, where we have legislatures, they don't wear such expensive items. And what the top was of it all, his friend and comrade came after him and said, I wear a wristwatch worth 17 million Kenya shillings. Great surprise to the world, not only to Kenyans, where people are struggling to have 1 meal per day, and others struggle to have 1 meal in 2 days. And someone is wearing a wristwatch worth 70 million Kenya shillings. I talked to citizens of America, white and black, and I conversed with them about such stories. And they question, what's going on in those countries where people here, they are dying, and someone can wear such a watch? I tell them that's the kind of corruption there is in Kenya. So to answer this question in short, is it we have never had any war on corruption in Kenya? There have been so many promises, leader after leader, promising fighting corruption, campaigns to campaign that, when I go in, I'll fight corruption. And no one has ever fought corruption. And if anybody has gone just somewhere to be called a fight on corruption, it's arresting clerks. Some clerks who stole about 20,000, 10,000, and even some CS who stole 2 million. And the people who have stolen billions are walking free on the streets. People who have messed the country are walking free on the streets. And this time round, they're the same people who are clamoring to go back and become Leave Kenya. This is very horrifying. I do not see a serious person who is ready to fight corruption putting corruption as a tree, big tree, fig tree. Someone starting to cut the tree from the leaves. Wants to put down the tree, and he goes to the leaves and say, "Oh, what are you doing there on the top of the tree? I'm trying to put this tree down." How? Starting by the leaves. You have to start from the roots. When you destroy the roots of a tree, the whole tree with the stem, the branches, and the leaves, they fall down. But fighting or clearing the leaves, it means you are doing nothing. Because before you get to the stem, the leaves have grown again up there. So corruption in Kenya, and I'm saying this so that even whoever that will become president have to understand. To end corruption in Kenya, you have to go head on with the people who matter. These are these people on the top who have stolen billions of Kenya shillings. Arresting them, no matter who they are. Arresting them, prosecuting them, and jailing them when it's proved they stole the money. And when they are jailed, the money that they stole, whether banked abroad or in Kenya, is retrieved and brought back to the country and helps the country. It's given to the owners in the form of helping the owners. Kenya can go the Burkina Faso way in a short time as 1 year. All the fees from primary school to university can be written off. There's too much money in Kenya, a lot of money, but it's looted by corrupt leaders. That is how Kenya can be helped. And I've said again in another meeting that we talk about land, problem on land. The problem on land is as easy to end as corruption is, because problem of the land is brought about by the land officers. These are the people. There's no way someone can sign more than one title deed for one plot or one piece of land, and then give these titles to two different people. What do you expect after you give these titles to these people? You expect a war or killings. So problems are man-made and they can be ended.
Daktari, the problems, as you say, hello, Daktari, as you say rightly, the problems that we are experiencing today as a country are man-made. And largely we put that blame on the citizens, largely when it comes to the election. And sometimes this week, Gen Zs have, gone to Twitter, to X, formerly Twitter, and they are calling you to come back to Kenya and run for president. They feel, Daktari, from what we've read through the tweets, that you have what it takes to be to lead this country from where we are to where we decide to go as a country. And, we've not had an opportunity to also hear from you and even doing a declaration anywhere about your interest to run for presidency, because we are talking to very many youths, and there is genuine comparison between those people who are already fronted to run for president. We are talking about people like, former Interior CS, Dr. Fred Matiangi. We are talking about people like, the current president, William Ruto, of course, who has also joined hands with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And it appears to most Gen Zs that, these are the same faces that we've had in the past. To talk about Dr. Fred Matiangi, and look at him during the time that he was the Interior CS. Talk about somebody like, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who they think is more of a tribal lord than a leader. Talk about somebody like Raila Odinga, who most say that, have betrayed the cause, the genuine cause by the Gen Zs. There is this rallying call, and these young men and women are not taking rest. Daktari, what do you make of this?
Thank you very much for asking me that question. And I'm very happy because I've heard and I've been called through the phone by many Gen Zs. And they have asked me the same question that you're telling me. And to answer your question, I'd like to say one thing. God willing, nothing is impossible. And God willing, Kenyans have to accept the will of God. Because I say this because I'm a Christian, and also Christianity is not very far from Islam. I say this because sometimes people go against the will of God, and God does not fight people. Never, he never fights people. I think if we talk about democracy, God is very democratic. If I can remember very well, through the Bible, I'm a Christian. Through the Bible, there was one time the Israelites said that they didn't want to be led by God directly, because God used to select someone through whom he could communicate to people. And they said, we don't want that anymore. What do you want? We want to elect one of our own. How? Our own, like other people. God said, okay, if you don't want me to do that, I'll allow you. But you suffer a lot and you cry a lot. And they chose Saul. Saul tortured them so much, as God said. I'm saying this because they refused the will of God. And even today, people refuse the will of God. Hear God, that God willing, I can. Because when the Gen Z call upon me and see that people that for whom I fight, plus other people, well, it's very important for me to put into consideration about their quest or their request that I go to Kenya. And I promise Gen Z that I'm still considering that, even now. And the number swelling the way it is now about Gen Z asking for me to go to Kenya, well, I would like to promise Gen Z, I am not a coward. I fought the war on corruption for more than 30 years. And for those who don't know, I was poisoned in Kenya. And I went semi-blind. And I was semi-paralyzed. And I lost all white blood cells. And I had infection of a kidney, of the bladder, on the prostate. And I was treated for quite a long time here in USA for this, because of the poison. And finally, I had brain surgery because of the poison. I'm saying this because people may think that I'm just coming up trying to talk about corruption, fight about corruption. Well, I'm talking about corruption from deep in my heart, because I've seen people suffer, people die because of fighting corruption. Gen Z, I know that you slayed last time. And why I say you slayed is because you had the government in your hands. You had the government. When any group goes to an extent of taking parliament, it's over. That's taking the government. But the Gen Z lacked one thing, and I'm going to say here in the TV, they lack the identity of a leader to lead them. Had they identified a leader like Bangladesh, which went on the streets in August, 2 months, today we could be talking about something else in Kenya, because Ruto would not be president today. He would have lost power. So kutereza sio kuanguka. You are still on there. And I promise you, I'm not a coward. If really you want me, because that's the will of God, I will come. I will come. It depends on how much pressure on me you're going to add, because I need to be convinced fully that you are with me. Thank you.
Amazing. They say ukiitika utaitika, and they are still pushing, and we expect more of those rallying calls from Gen Zs to you, Daktari, to consider coming back to the country and to help us reclaim, or rather to help the Gen Zs reclaim the glory that Kenya ought to have. And Daktari, speaking of your candidature, we've had political parties since time immemorial. I would also want to hear from you about the space of political parties here in Kenya and what you'd make of that if you were to run for president.
Well, I'm worried, and I've been worried all along, because the tool that has been used by corrupt politicians to get into power is the formation of coalitions. Coalitions are the backbone of impunity in Kenya, because after forming coalitions, that's where a corrupt leader is identified. He said by those same people that this is the leader to lead Kenya. And that's not a leader, that's not a choice of the country. It's not a choice of the electorate. It's a choice of a few corrupt people and a few political power brokers. These are the people who identify leaders for Kenya. Now, I would like to demand and ask and plead with the Gen Z. Please don't be blindfolded this time around. Don't be blackmailed this time by being given a leader, by a leader being chosen there in dark rooms, and then it's brought to you and said, oh, this is a leader. No, you have eyes and you have got brain. You should be independent in choosing a leader that can help Kenya. The Bangladesh Gen Z did not seek help for many politicians to seek for a leader. They chose a leader of their wish. And they chose Yunus. It's called Yunus. Mohammed Yunus. Mohammed Yunus is 84 years old. And they chose him because they knew that this is the man who is going to help us. This is a man who is going to lead us. And as I've said, always, if Gen Z identify a good leader in Kenya, in only 2 years only, corruption will be history in Kenya.
Corruption. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Daktari. Talking about corruption.
Yeah.
Daktari, that is amazing.
Yes, and I mean it. And about employment, in 2 years, Gen Z, with a good leader, they realized for sure they had missed something for many years, something that they were yet to realize, that they will realize. Unemployment will be just minimal, if there will be any, in 2 years, because there is a lot of there is not room of creating jobs in Kenya. But instead of creating room, is destruction of the room to create jobs. How do you expect jobs to come in when you're destroying the room to create jobs? There's no way. You have to create an atmosphere of creating job opportunities, because job opportunities will not come from heaven. They will not be brought there by UFOs. The job opportunities are there in Kenya. Just for someone upright to make it possible in 2 years for job opportunities to be plenty in Kenya. And you hear no more outcry about jobs, because as long as there are very few, there will be no outcry for jobs.
Daktari, perhaps you are alive to the fact that, elections in Kenya, rather campaigns, are very expensive. An MP, for example, in Nairobi might need $500,000 to run for a successful campaign. And, this also speaks to the question of how the accountability when these people are elected to those positions that, they are entrusted with. I also want to understand, because we know for a presidential candidate, you might need close to 7 billion Kenya shillings to run a successful campaign. How are you going to address this in the event that, the pressure from the Gen Zs is something that is going to overwhelm you, so that then now you decide to come back to the country to be the voice that Gen Zs wants to hear?
Let me assure you, if the pressure increases the way it is, and the phone calls I'm receiving every day from people in Kenya, problem about money for campaigns will not be a problem. Because I'm influential in the world. And I'm saying this because not many people know that I leave America here now and then to attend international. So, me, what I have and my friends, I know I'll meet the challenges of those people who stolen money in Kenya. And with the Gen Z, I know I can succeed very easily. Only that, I know, and I'm convinced that William Ruto is ready to steal the election. He's ready. He has put all the tools of looting or stealing election in place. But then, if the Gen Z, before I come for that election, I will have worked a formula. I'm not giving you the formula now. I will have worked a formula that I'll have people to assist Kenya have a transparent election. Me. I know people say, who is Isaac? The same way they did last year in May, when I said, and I wrote in the internet, I'll stop William Ruto from addressing the joint session of the US Congress. Myself, I put it in the internet everywhere. And people questioned me and said, oh, who is he? This man needs to go to a psychiatrist because he's crazy in the head. But after 2 weeks, the Speaker of the USA said, William Ruto can come to USA, but he will not address the joint session of the US Congress. And you know what? Those same people were castigating, saying that, who is he? Who is Isaac? They started calling me and asking me, Isaac, who did you see? I told them I went and saw a psychiatrist. The same person told me to go and see is the one I saw, and he's the one who helped me do what I wanted to do.
Dr. Talking about your influence and, of course, now geopolitics, the recent development from the U.S. Senate discussing, issues around President Ruto, and we want to understand from where you are, where is this coming from? Could it be from the delegation of the likes of Gachagua and Matiangi, or could it be your influence that is, leading to this kind of a relationship fracture between William Ruto and Donald Trump's led government?
It's a very interesting question. Very interesting. Well, I will not deliberate on the source of the information or the cause of this issue. But I'll tell you one thing. Today, it's neither Ruto, it is neither Matiangi, nor is it Gachagua. If you see my article that I wrote yesterday, I said Gachagua, Kinity, and IG should not be left behind in the probe. They should be in the probe. And I said, frankly, that on March 14th last year, when the Gen Z were beaten thoroughly, and Laida's car was shot with many bullets, William Ruto was not in the country. Rigathi Gachagua was acting as the president. I know when he's asked, you say, oh, I was told to do that. I was told to give instructions of killing. No. it's him who did that. In fact, he was quoted in the papers as saying that this time that Ruto is not in here, I'm waking up, I don't know, at 3 o'clock to go to the office. To do what in the office? So I'm saying that because he will not be left behind now. I'm telling you, he will not be left behind. He will also be in the probe. He will be probed. And I do not know how he would ask the US government to probe him, because he will be probed. Probably when they start probing him, he will tell us how it came about. He asked the US government to probe him when it comes about. But this time, I will not deliver.
Tulikuwa tunaendelea tukimalizia.
Yeah.
And you know, we had talked about the issue around campaign financing, and of course the issue around the Gen Z's rather rallying call to you to come back to the country and to run for president. But we left at a point where we were also trying to talk about these people who have been in the political space, and of course now talking about your influence and the current development, you know, of Ruto being discussed in Senate. And, you know, a question was posed as to whether it is Dr. Kiniti's or it could be the Matiangi and Gachagua. Glad that you have bring out that so clearly. I wanted to understand, Dr. from where you sit. We're having Dr. Fred Matiangi. We have a former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. They are currently in the state. And of course, we have Raila Odinga and William Ruto. What do you make of these two people? Because as it stands, these are the potential candidates they see from where they sit, they think so. I want to get to understand your perspective of these people. And even as you speak about them, speak about the former CJ, David Maraga, and of course, Busia Senator Okia Omtata.
Well, when I say about the war on corruption, I know who matter in that war. And I know that the corruption ends at any person's hands who has a vote to sign money for doing a certain job. So these people who are signatory to payment vouchers in Kenya, in whatever category they are, these people have looted money. And if you talk about Chief Justice Madaraka, if you talk about that, they have been they have had access to public funds. On the question of Okia Omtata, well, I'll say that Okia Omtata has done quite a good job. But I'm not trying to discredit him. But when you are in parliament, you make friends with the people you are with in parliament. And these parliamentarians, no one knows about the others' extent of looting public funds, because they don't go on saying that they've looted so much. No. Just in case, I'm just putting it to you, that someone has been clean and has had so many friends in parliament who looted public funds. When it comes to fighting corruption, arresting people who are looted, will he arrest his friends? He will not. He will not arrest his friends. And when you omit one person who looted public funds, you have omitted all, because the others know about what happened. And if you omit to arrest so and so who is not to have looted, then you'll be asked, why did you leave so and so? Also leave me. Don't touch me. Before you touch me, you must touch so and so. So these people who have been senators, these people have been MPs, those people who have been PSS, I would ask the Gen Zs to leave them alone for the time being and elect someone else who has never had access to public funds, or who has never been a friend of the looters of public funds, or in a position to make friends with the looters of public funds. Because when you are in parliament, the possibility of you making friends with the looters of public funds are very many. Very many. Because you are going to cafeteria, you're meeting a friend, you don't know whether he's looted money or not. and you ask him to come to a fundraising in your area, and he comes with his wife and children, his children and the children of the Ruto family funds make friends. The wife make friends with the wife of this person. Then how do you persecute that person when the wife of that person and the children comes to cry to you? Oh, now why do you arrest our father and your friends? We are our friends. How are you going to do it? You cannot do it. So Kenya needs to have someone fresh, someone who will not have any mercy, someone who will not leave anybody who is accused or suspected of corruption. No, someone who deal with everything, and not someone who's going to go to the people down there, clerks. No, the person who start getting corruption down by putting down these people on the top, not killing them, but arresting them, prosecuting them, and putting them in jail. Those people have looted billions of Kenya shillings. These are the people who matter. And it's their money that can raise Kenya, because they have written so much, trillions and trillions of Kenya shillings. And if this money is retrieved, it can help Kenya a lot. So, but or the others, but the Gen Z have got to think very much of who they are going for, because they might go for someone and eventually they are disappointed because of lack of the proper war on corruption. Because if corruption will never be put down, then there's nothing that's going to change in Kenya.
Amazing. If corruption will not be put down, Daktari, as you rightly say, we are going to remain where we are today, Daktari. Thank you for that insightful conversation. We are speaking to Dr. Isaac Kinity, a man who has been in the space fighting for human rights, right from a very young age. Daktari has also been one of the leaders here in the country, leading the workers union, and even as far away from home, is still vocal on issues to do with corruption, that is saying that is the main vice that is eating Kenyan government. And there needs to be a new blood in the leadership of this country. Daktari, thank you very much for your time. Just before you part ways with Lumbasi TV, what is your word to the Gen Zs? Because we know from where we sit that the war on corruption is something that they are not taking rest at, and of course making the rallying call of one Dr. Isaac Kinity to come back to the country and to help them fight this together. And you have put it very categorically that our leadership, we cannot have a revolution without a leader. And probably Gen Zs have read so much that they've come to full realization that it was not wise to be leaderless, and they are coming to that full realization at a time that we are staring at an election in about 18 months. Daktari, what is your word to them, and how long are they going to make this rallying call before you finally surrender, or rather heed to their call, Daktari?
Well, thank you very much for asking me that question again. And I also have to thank Gen Z so much again for the work, for their courage and determination to help the country of Kenya. I want to tell Gen Z that whoever that to lead Kenya, I have to demand that the names of all Gen Z who died in the course of fighting for the rights of Kenyans be put somewhere, like in Parliament, as a memoir, to be remembered. The names of all of them to be put there, and Parliament there, for everybody coming to Kenya can look and read the names of those who fought. And also those who are injured should also be remembered. I'm sorry to say that the Masuja Day, no one important is remembered. People just make their own, the leaders make their own heroes. Their own heroes. But the people who matter and people who did a lot for the country are forgotten. This time round, whether I can become the president or not, my war will not end here. I will fight up and down to make sure that the names of all the Gen Z who died are put somewhere. And I call upon all Gen Z, and I hope they are listening to me, to start collecting the names of the people of their own comrades who died in the war to fight for justice for Kenya, so that we can be able to fight together for a list of these people to be put before the Kenya Parliament, so that even when the members of Parliament go there, they can see it. And they can also see how much they failed to protect Kenya. It's good for members of Parliament to realize how much they have failed Kenya and they have failed the workers and all the people of Kenya, because Parliament has got legislatures who make the law and who should be at the forefront to fight for the people of Kenya when there are problems. Even this time, they're supposed to be at forefront of challenging the atrocities and crimes committed by the system, but they are not. And I also want to take my war. I want to extend my word to Atwoli. Francis Atwoli who was my friend when I was fighting for the civil servant. He has failed the workers of Kenya, totally failed. For the last 2 years, I've been fighting for the army, Kenya Army salaries, because they are the most poorly paid workers in Kenya. They are getting less salary than the watchmen, than the car washers, and even less than laborers who go to construction sites. They get less than that. They get 7,172 Kenya shillings per month. And those trained, they get 11,800. Those cadets are paid 11,800. This is nothing, freaking nothing. That is $92 per month. That's nothing. So, Atwoli has failed. Despite the fact that they don't have a union, they don't have representation. Atwoli, the head of KOTU, the Central Organization of Trade Unions in Kenya, should have come forefront to fight for the KDF staff, and he has failed. So I pray very much for the Gen Z, and I thank them so much for calling upon me. And I promise them, if the pressure reaches a certain angle, before this year ends, I might announce the day that I'm coming to Kenya. It will depend on the Gen Z.
Doctor.
I will announce it. And when I announce I'm coming, it will be a special day. Thank you very much.
Dr. Isaac Newton Kinity, a former trade unionist, speaking to us all the way from Connecticut on Hard Talk with Lumbasi TV. Dr. Thank you for your time, and we thank each and every viewer who has taken their time to follow this discussion. We will be back in a short